Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me at Evolutionary Energy Arts once again. So, what you are looking at here is something called the South Atlantic Anomaly. And this is an area of basically where the shields are going down, as we've been speaking about. It's a dip in the Earth's magnetic field, which allows cosmic rays and charged particles to reach lower into the atmosphere and interfere with communications, satellites, aircraft, even the space shuttle. The geological origin is not known yet. The enhanced particle flux in the SAA is also strongly affecting the X-ray detectors, which in essence are particle detectors. And more than that, it affects us on a deep biological, emotional, and basically in every way that you could imagine. And humans that are especially traveling in airplanes in this area are getting bombarded by tremendous levels of radiation. And when you have what we have going on right now, which is the beginnings of a pole shift, this area will probably grow most likely, and there may be other areas similar to this that develop across the planet, especially in the Arctic and the Antarctic areas. So there's going to be increased radiation coming in. And one of the things I was going to touch on real quick is it looks like we're returning to a more normal pattern in the Arctic as far as the polar vortex goes, although it is definitely cooling down, whereas we had incredibly unusual warm temperatures at the actual physical North Pole that were just totally bizarre. It's gone back to a more normal 25 to 30 below zero, and the cool weather is spreading deeply down into especially Eurasia and also into Canada and dipping into the United States. And so, there's only thing that's constant is change. And we could see that, winter is very much with us and will be with us quite a while. We have very, very cold temps down below in Antarctica. And actually, it's been a very cool summer in many places in the southern hemisphere. As we see some of the temps in Antarctica of a good solid 51 degrees below zero, 52 degrees below zero. So, wild weather, incredible really. And we know we're heading into at least a little ice age, if not something much, much more. And in the UK, they actually had to call the armed forces in to help as the death toll rises to 10 in the coldest spring day on record. Just pretty wild stuff. And unfortunately, or however you look at it, unless you really like extreme cold weather, it's going to be sticking around, and not just for the remainder of this winter, but this is going to be something that is just a prelude to the new norm. And this was something from the last day of February, saying that in this small Montana city, they were going to set the record for the coldest February ever, unless they hit 108 degrees that day, and they didn't. So, coldest February ever. And we still have water disappearing in different areas. Now, the question is, was this due to the northeaster? And this is down in North Carolina, and Pamlico and Neuse rivers just completely dry. And also some locations in South Carolina experienced the same thing. And so the scientists would say it more than likely is due to the high winds and the northeaster that we had. But there are still reports coming in from all over the world of these dried riverbeds and just, a lot of water anomalies going on. And it could have to do with the magneticism of the Earth itself, because we are going through a pole shift. And that is something that is happening, and the mainstream scientists are jumping on board. And they're now kind of warning us. Now, most of the mainstream scientists are saying, don't fear crustal displacement and things along those lines. Don't fear a 2012 scenario, the movie 2012, where you had tidal waves that reached up to Mount Everest. Don't fear that type of thing, but do realize that our entire power grid could be gone, for long periods of time, and then come up and then go back down. Satellites for sure disrupted, if not completely fried. All sorts of things like that. So there has been a report done by scientists at Rochester University that concluded that changes in the strength of the magnetic field observed in the South Atlantic anomaly could portend a quick coup of the magnetic poles of the Earth. So what they're saying is that it appears that repeatedly, not just this time, but in the past, it's been that area that experiences the pole shift first. So the South Atlantic anomaly is the signal that the pole shift is underway. And sometimes you'll have like what they call pole wandering, where it doesn't shift totally, and actually it's way overdue. As we've said, it should go every 200,000 years roughly, and it's pushing 800,000 now. So we are like so far overdue that it's really very interesting that it hasn't happened in so long. But it's deteriorating very, very fast, and right now at a rate of, we're losing the magnetosphere at a rate of 5% per decade, and that could speed up because it has sped up. And so now scientists are saying, yes, it appears that the South Atlantic anomaly is the sign that we are going through a pole shift. It's perhaps the first sign of change of the poles. And as the field deteriorates, it might not really be possible for people to stay there because there's going to be so much UV radiation pouring in. And so there's so many articles out on this now in the last few days. Scientists may have found the birthplace of magnetic field reversals. And again, it's the South Atlantic anomaly. And it's going to cause tremendous change in the entire planet, because as the magnetosphere goes down, the UV radiation goes up, and it's just going to wreak havoc with many, many things. Right now, there's a lot of people out there that are getting very savvy, and they're checking because you could buy on Amazon detectors to check the UV radiation where you are. And down here in Florida, and conversely over in Texas and Arizona, typically this time of year you might see a reading of around a 6, and most places have been reading around 10 or 11, so significantly higher than usual. And that's only going to increase. So just be aware of that. And some will say, well, wear long sleeve clothing even in the hot weather. Try to keep yourself not exposed to the sun. And then there are some that might say we need to expose to the sun, but do it knowingly and consciously, because this could be the trigger in our evolution. So this is something you're going to have to search out the truth for yourself. New data helps explain recent fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field. So the mainstream is catching up with it. And out of Berkeley News, increased UV from ozone depletion sterilizes trees. So that's an interesting study going on there, talking about during the planet's largest mass extinction, when exposed to the ultraviolet radiation, as the shields go down, as we say, the magnetosphere decreases, it temporarily made some of the trees sterile. And remember the studies that I have pointed out in other videos talking about the increase in, well, the decrease in fertility, the increase in the infertility rates And I do feel like a lot of that is due to GMOs and all sorts of stuff that we're bombarded with in our world that causes us to need to constantly be cleansing ourselves. We need to constantly be doing cleanses, juice fasts, things along those lines in order to clean our system from just all the chemicals and everything that is, all around us at all the time. But perhaps, some of the reason for the increase in infertility is also related to the increase in the radiation that's going on around us. And so this particular study was saying that the trees themselves were affected. It's very, very interesting. And as I was saying, down there in Australia, New Zealand, they've had a relatively cool summer. It hasn't been that toasty down there. And, actually it, in some cases it's been a record cool summer. Yet, the UV has been extremely high. Even with these cooler temperatures, the UV has been increasing. So it's something to be aware of, because it could cause cancer increases, obviously. And it's one of the things when we step outside and it's abnormally cool, you don't automatically think about, putting on some protection. And I personally steer clear of all the big, cheap suntan lotions because they have so many chemicals in there, and some of those chemicals could cause issues themselves. So just plain old zinc oxide and some other natural solutions is what I would stick to personally. So UV radiation causing two neighboring pyrimidine bases to bind to each other. So what we're talking about is damage coming to the DNA by UV radiation that can cause mutations. And now when we think of working out, when we work out and we lift weights or we do resistance exercise, we are actually causing damage. And the damage gets repaired and the muscles get stronger. So that is kind of a natural progression. So we don't have to, and we should not, be completely fearful. We just need to be aware and pay attention. But so much of everything is mindset. So much of everything is intention and mindset. And it's how we view things. And we have a lot of ability, a lot of power within us to change something that's potentially negative into a positive. So mutations can be caused by mutagens, a physical or chemical cause of mutation. Example, UV light, radiation, drugs, benzene. Mutagens are often also carcinogens, anything that can cause cancer. Can be natural random events. Mutations occur in 1/100,000th of DNA replications. Mutations do not have to be bad. Think in terms of evolution. So again, something to keep in mind with what is going on, because we are going to be bombarded with tons of energy. Many of my friends, subscribers have hit me up with, what is going on today, texts and emails saying that they're feeling really weird, really funky, just had to lay down, and then they'll come back up and they'll feel all of a sudden supercharged when they take a little power nap, or they'll feel like they have to get into the sun. Sometimes they feel like they have to get out of the sun, but just getting hit with all these weird energies. And that's because we are getting bombarded with weird energies, unusual energies. We know the human race has gone through many mutations, and some have been natural, some have been induced. And at least that is what I believe going through the history. Some things have happened naturally, and some things have been, planned mutations. And genetic experiments as well. And so change is always the only thing we could count on, because nothing in this universe ever stays the same. Everything is always changing. It's always evolving. It's always mutating. It's changing from one form to another. As we know, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change forms. And so we are being bombarded with changing energy, strengthening energy, or it could be destructive. It's going to depend on probably the individual, as well as where you are located, what you're taking into your body, what you're taking into your mind energetically. We know there has been tremendous change over the millions of years and during human evolution. So what is next? That's the big question. There are so many traditions that speak of what time we are in and what's coming next. And they say that if you are familiar with Blavatsky's work and some of the other ones, they talk about different root races, how there are different, what is conceived to be a root race is basically like a new genetic form, a new type of human that emerges. And this happens regularly. Humans are always changing and evolving towards a higher state of development, a higher state of being. And so now is the time when, according to many sources, new root races are going to emerge. And we are going to evolve into something different, something more multidimensional. And again, like Tesla had spoken about, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, you have to think in terms of vibration and frequency. Everything is energy, and we will be expanding our consciousness and perceiving things in a greater frequency band than what we perceive at the moment. So these energies that are coming in are triggering mutations, and some view it as our DNA with 97% junk material, quote unquote, is being reactivated, and the junk material is not going to be junk anymore, but it's going to be turned back on because it was turned off at some point. And when it is turned back on, instead of just being on one little frequency, think of it in terms of a radio channel. And your reality is just one station. Well, now, all of a sudden, you're going to be able to hear 3, 4, 5, 6 stations at once. And so it could be very confusing at first. And people that have Kundalini experiences, of which I know several, and where their Kundalini, their evolutionary energy has risen from the base of the spine, and it's changed their DNA. It's transformed them, and so that they could all of a sudden now see energy. They could see beings on other dimensions that they couldn't see before. And so it could be very disconcerting. And sometimes the energy fluxes can really play with you and exhaust you and wipe you out, or leave you hypercharged and supercharged where you can't sleep for days on end. So there's a lot of processing that needs to take place, and really people are being guided right now, and I know tons of them that are being guided by their intuition to change their diet. Many are giving up meat altogether and gravitating towards a vegan diet. And then there are some that might even have been vegan, and then all of a sudden, I need some fish or something, because it's happening so fast in them, because a vegan diet and a vegetarian diet and a live food diet in particular will speed up the process. And sometimes it could be happening so fast that you will almost feel like you're going to go crazy unless you ground yourself. So you could ground yourself by, eating something that's a little bit lower vibrational, such as fish or meat. So there's times when people will feel like they need that because it's going to pull them back to this reality a little bit more. And everybody is unique, and it's not that anybody is crazy. Everybody is unique. You have your own perspective. You're going through your own changes. The one thing I would definitely recommend, though, is adopt a regular pattern of cleansing, whether it's, a 3-day fast every month, a 1-day fast every week. Maybe I know one of my good friends, he basically has his clients basically have one day where all they eat is fruit, and that gives their system a break. You could do it by intermittent fasting, which is a wonderful way to clear out those carcinogenic cells. When our body is not taking in food for over 12 hours, it starts to break down first material that is not healthy. So the first material the body will break down will be anything that is carcinogenic, anything that is not helping it. So this is an automatic way of cleansing ourselves of cancerous cells, and many other techniques you could do as well. But intermittent fasting, usually people will eat in, say, a 16-hour window, something along those lines. So you might eat, just say, from noon till 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock till 6 o'clock, something along those lines. Some people will push it more. I myself was doing 20 hours without eating and just eating in a 4-hour window between 2 and 6. And it definitely sped along the processes. You feel much lighter, quicker, as far as your mental clarity and all. And so this is something that you have to work with on your own, but realize that it's necessary to detox, to cleanse in this environment with the increased energy and just with all the crap that is around us. All the GMOs, all the pesticides that are sprayed everywhere, the chemtrails in the sky. We must constantly be cleansing. We need to take the load off of our livers, off of our kidneys, off of the spleen, and help these things, help them function. And with the increased energy coming in, it's more imperative than ever. And so as we evolve, some say we're going to become light body beings, and light bodies is also known as a Merkaba, and in the Kabbalistic tradition, comes out of Judaism. And in Tibet, they speak of the rainbow body, and many, many monks achieve the rainbow body just through regular meditation, where they will be in meditation, and then the people will come in, and their clothes are there, but they're gone. Sometimes they leave just the hair and the nails. Sometimes the body starts to just simply shrink, and it's just crazy. And I've talked about this in other videos. I do have a video out on ascension, if you guys would check that out. I think it's so important, and I want everybody to be aware of what's going on, because this is something that's been talked about in many, many, many traditions all over the world. And it's part of what's going on with the pole reversal. The pole reversal is going to trigger energetic changes in us. And so we must know how to prepare physically, mentally, emotionally, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It is the trigger for a new stage in evolution, for human evolution, in my opinion. And I encourage you guys to look into things deeper. As always, please hit the like button and share as much as possible. Let's wake up as many people to what's going on. The changes are real. The changes are here. And so it's how we address it and how we personally adapt to it and how we take it as an opportunity for personal growth. As always, there's no fear. Fear is the inhibitor. But awareness, preparation, and knowing. And we will get through this, and we will come out better and stronger on the other side. So as always, I wish you guys love and no fear. As we said, have a plan, be prepared, and share. And if you haven't subscribed, definitely subscribe and get more updates that way. I thank you all for your support. Take care, my friends.